Hi everyone, today we're going to be learning about how to fix run-ons. We've already practiced identifying what a run-on is, so now we need to learn how to fix it so that you don't have run-ons in your own writing, in your beautiful writing. You want to make sure that you are fixing them, punctuating them correctly. So do you remember what a run-on is? Run-on is two sentences squished together without the correct punctuation in between. So today we're going to learn how to correctly punctuate them. So, two sentences squished together. So, a sentence has to have a subject, a noun that does something, and a predicate, which is the verb that the subject does. And a sentence needs to be a complete thought. So, that's what one sentence is. So, it's run on, two sentences squished together. So, we are going to practice identifying that subject and the predicate so that we know where the break is between those two sentences. We know that it's a run on because it's two sentences squished together, but we need to find the break in between those two sentences so we know where to put our correct punctuation. So our first example of a run-on is, I love pizza, it tastes good. So the first subject, right, the first noun that's doing something is I. What is I doing? Love. I love pizza. What's the next subject? What's the next noun that's doing something? It. And remember, I and it are pronouns. A noun doesn't just have to be a regular noun. A subject could be a pronoun too. What is it doing? Taste. I love pizza. It tastes good. So the break is going to come between those two complete thoughts. And I know that it doesn't start a new complete thought until the word it. So that's where I'm going to put my break. So there are three ways to fix a run-on. We have a period, we have a semicolon, and we have comma and fanboys together. So the first way that we can fix a run-on, you guys know, is a period. And I'm sure you guys have done it before. So we have, I love pizza, it tastes good. So what we need to do, we're going to put it where we made our break earlier. So after pizza, right? And we also need to make sure that we capitalize the I and it because we're starting a new sentence. So you guys have been doing that for a long time. You know how to put a period in between two complete sentences. But why can't I just use a period all the time? If I use a period after every single sentence, after every single complete thought in my writing is going to sound like robot writing. I love pizza. It tastes good. I like pepperoni the best. It's my favorite flavor. We order from Vicelli's, right? I don't want too many short, choppy sentences in my writing. I want to have a variety of long and short sentences so that my writing flows and sounds like seventh grade writing, not like first grade writing. So that's why we don't always want to use a period. Sometimes we use a period, and that's okay, but not all the time. So we have another option. We have a semicolon. So the semicolon looks like a period with a little comma underneath. So a semicolon is just as strong as a period. So I can use it just like a period, but I don't have to capitalize the next sentence because I'm not creating a new sentence. I'm just separating two independent clauses. So I can just throw it in there as I would a period because it's just as strong as a period. So I love pizza. It tastes good. When should I use a semicolon? How do I know that I should use a semicolon instead of a period? When you want to use a semicolon is when the ideas are closely connected. I love pizza. It tastes good. I like pepperoni the best. It's my favorite flavor, right? Both of those ideas are connected. They're very similar. They're close together. It's okay to connect them with a semicolon. But if I was going to switch topics and talk about tacos, I'm also a huge fan of tacos. I wouldn't want to put a semicolon there because that's a separate topic. So use a semicolon when the topics are closely related. My last way that I can fix a run-on sentence is by using a comma and fanboys. So remember that our fanboys are coordinating conjunctions, meaning that they connect two independent clauses. So I can say for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. That's what fanboy stands for. Those are my options. When I have the option of comma fanboys, I can choose the correct coordinating conjunction. I can choose the correct fanboy that fits in that sentence. So, for example, I could say, I love pizza, comma, and it tastes good. I can't just use comma by itself, and I can't just use and by itself. I love Chick-fil-A, comma, but they're closed on Sundays. Again, no comma by itself, no but by itself. They have to be together. So make sure you're choosing the correct fanboy based on what the context of the sentence is. So why both? Why can't I just have a comma or just a fanboy to separate two complete sentences? Think of it like this. We have Kevin Durant, we have LeBron James, two big guys, right? If they had beef, if they were trying to fight and they were two complete sentences, little tiny Kevin Durant, little tiny comma isn't strong enough to separate them, right? Same thing with little Simone Biles. She's a tough girl, but not strong enough to separate these two big basketball players. However, if they were playing in the Celebrity All-Star game, maybe Kevin Hart could push off Kevin Durant and Simone Biles could push off LeBron James, and together they could separate them if they were in a fight. So just a little visual for you to remember that you have to have comma fanboys, not comma by itself, not fanboys by itself, comma fanboys together. So I love pizza, comma, and it tastes good. I love Chick-fil-A, comma, but they're closed on Sundays. So practice. So we're going to kind of put all those steps together that we just talked about. We need to identify the subject and the predicate, which is going to give us a clue as to where that break is in between the two sentences. Then once we found that break in between the two sentences, we're going to choose one to fix the run-on, either a period, a semicolon, or comma fanboys. So we have our run-on here. Diego walks to school, Brian rides the bus. So what's our first subject? Who's doing something in the sentence? Diego. What is Diego doing? Walks. What's our next subject? Brian. What is Brian doing? Rides. So our break in between the two sentences, and this is the important part. If you're stuck on the subject and the predicate, you can't, you're having trouble identifying that. The important part is that you can find the break in between the two sentences. Make sure each of them makes sense on its own based on where you put the break. So my break is going to go right here in between school and Brian. So I'm going to choose either a period, a semicolon, or comma fanboys. So I'm going to choose whichever one I think is appropriate. In this case, I'm just going to use comma and. You could also use a semicolon because they're closely related. And of course, you can always use a period, but we don't want to use a period all the time. And I know you guys know how to use a period, so we're not going to practice with that too much today. So this is our next run-on. Daniela listened to her music. It was too loud. So what's our first subject in the sentence? Who's doing something? Daniela. What is Daniela doing? Listened. What's our next subject? Music. It, right? It, remember, is a pronoun taking the place of music. It was too loud. Remember that our predicate can also be a helping verb. It doesn't have to be an action verb. So it was too loud. If I used music as my second predicate, the break wouldn't be in the right place. If I put the break here in between her and music, it would say, Daniela listened to her. Music, it was too loud, which doesn't make sense. So the important part when you're identifying subject and predicate for this activity is that you're finding the break between the two sentences, that each part makes sense by itself. So in this case, our break would go after music. So Daniela listened to her music. It was too loud. So I'm going to choose either a period, semicolon, or comma fanboys. In this case, I'm going to use a semicolon because they're closely related. The second sentence is directly related to the first sentence. All right, last example that we're going to go through. I want AirPods. They cost too much money. So what's the first subject in the sentence? I. What is I doing? Want. Second subject? They. Talking about the AirPods. Remember, the subject can be a pronoun. What do they do? Cost too much money. So we put our break in. I want AirPods. That's one sentence. They cost too much money. Second sentence. So if I was going to choose a fanboy here, which fanboy would I choose? But, right? Comma, but. Can't have but by itself, can't have comma by itself. I want AirPods, comma, but they cost too much money, sadly. So your turn. So this would be the student activity. So this is kind of the more scaffolded version where I would give students a sentence on individual Google Slides. So they would kind of follow the process on their own, where they drag and drop the subject and predicate and the line to kind of mimic the process that we did together. I would always put the steps that students need to take on that slide, and then they would fill in by typing the correct punctuation in between. This would be a less scaffolded version where all of the sentences are on the same slide. And then this would be an extension activity where students need to correct run-ons that they find in their own writing. So this is a student sample of writing. So students would have to find those run-ons and correct them in context of their own student writing. So this is our lesson breakdown. So the learning targets, the student will write in a variety of forms with an emphasis on exposition, narration, and persuasion. So this is SOL 7.7, and then we're under the letter H. Expand and embed ideas by using modifiers, standard coordination and subordination, and complete sentences. So obviously this lesson is focusing on the coordination piece of the fanboys. How will you and your students know if they have successfully met the outcome? So students have already shown that they can correctly identify a run-on before they're moving on to this activity. So they need to correctly identify the break in between those two independent clauses. And they need to choose the correct coordinating conjunction and or appropriate punctuation. So if they can't do that in the examples provided, then I would have to do an intervention with them where I would probably work with them one-on-one, going through the step-by-step process that I had shown earlier in the video, or in a small group where maybe they would share together, okay, where do we think the break is? Which fanboy do I think makes the most sense? And I might go into teaching some of those coordinating conjunctions a little bit deeper because, especially for non-native English speakers, they might not know that yet means but, or they might not know that nor means not. Access for all and accommodations. How will you consider accommodations for special programs? How will you ensure that all students engage appropriately in this lesson? So obviously we have the steps broken down piece by piece to help students be successful. And then we have modeling before independent practice. And then I would, again, use small group practice or one-on-one practice, going through those steps and making sure that they're understanding each piece that they need to do to correctly punctuate those sentences. Thanks. Let me know if you have any questions.